Hey guys, I'm not going to be in class today because I am in meetings for professional development, so I apologize for that. Sorry also for how whiny my voice probably sounds. It tends to do that on my mic. I know I already have a whiny voice. Anyway, so today in class you guys are going to begin working on your summative assessment for this unit. It is going to be due on Friday, this Friday. It's not super complicated. It doesn't have to be very long, so don't panic. I actually had a lot of people pretty much finish it today in class. So I'm going to walk you through the steps of what you need because I cannot personally be there to do so. First things first, you should have 2 sheets of paper on your desk. They should look like this. So one of these is your Unit 3 Survival Summative Assignment sheet. It has all of the information you need on it. It also has a place for you to fill in your persona. You will all be assigned a persona. I'll walk you through the steps. But just make sure you have this sheet. On the back of it, you will see the rubric. And then the second sheet of paper you should have is this. And I'll explain it as we go along. Okay, so here's the scenario. What you're going to end up doing is writing a letter. What is our occasion? The zombie apocalypse. A zombie virus is overtaking the earth. It was initially transmitted by bite. However, it is now airborne and is spreading like wildfire. It has not yet reached Georgia, but is expected to do so within days. It is estimated that any unvaccinated humans will become infected, die, and become undead. Dr. Jovich from Atlanta's Center for Disease Control, which, by the way, is actually in Atlanta, has the only remaining vials of the vaccine. He has deemed certain communities survivor communities, and ours is one. But only one of us will receive the vaccine and live in his compound, at least one of us in our classroom. Write a letter to Dr. Jovich and the selection committee, convincing them to let you join his compound and receive the vaccine. However, there is a catch. You are not you. So, eventually I will show you this document where I've assigned each of you a number completely randomly. My other classes just picked it out of a cup, so, you know, it's all fair. And you will be writing this letter from the perspective of that persona. It's actually really similar to what we did with our introduction activity for this unit, where you guys had to convince a helicopter pilot to rescue you and save you. However, instead of it just being a random letter where we're not using any techniques, for this assignment, you need to incorporate the rhetorical appeals that we have learned, as well as rhetorical devices. So I will tell you what you need. All right, you'll be given an identity, like I said. You will need to decide the gender. That's totally up to you. You can decide the name of your character. I don't care if it's something funny. That's fine with me. However, you should try to keep this classified because what I'm going to end up doing is pick 3 from our class. I will end up, after I've graded through them, decided which ones are relatively the best. I will read them aloud to the class, and the class will decide who they think should be the winner. And I want them to choose it based on persuasive techniques as opposed to the fact that it's your friend. So keep that in mind. All right, so complete your character identification form. You will end up writing a letter. This letter will be addressed to Dr. Jovich and the selection committee to try to convince them to allow you to be one of the survivors. Ignore this where it says remember soapstone, 2 appeals, and 4 techniques. I'm only requiring you to use 1 appeal. So that's our logos, pathos, and ethos. Let me go type this up somewhere actually. Here. So 1 appeal. I want you all to write this down on your assignment sheet right now. 1 appeal, which is logos, pathos, or ethos. And you have to use 3 rhetorical, rhetorical devices or techniques. So that means this includes that repetition, alliteration, everything that's on that one note sheet, as well as the things you learned about when we did the stations. So you can use cause and effect. If you don't choose me as a doctor, then you might have people that become ill or get an infection that can't be healed. Therefore, you need my help to be able to survive this, right? So cause and effect is really effective. You can use rhetorical question. That's an option as well. If you're going to use rhetorical question, it does not mean that it's any question in the world, okay? It needs to be used to persuade. I'll give you some examples of that in the example letter. Obviously, I'll be there on Friday to look it over as well, but I would like you to be pretty much have your draft done. You should have enough time in class today to work on that. So keep in mind, this is 3 different devices or techniques. Don't give me 3 examples of just alliteration. There's supposed to be 3 different ones. Okay, where was I? Right, so If you continue looking, there's also an example of a letter, how to address a letter, as well as a check. We decided just to include this in this unit because it is a life skill that you need to have. So when you graduate from high school, you can say we taught you something especially useful that you'll definitely have to apply to no matter what you do in life. Okay, so let me give you some examples of what you're going to be doing. So here is my example letter. Always start off, give us the date. I also have an example of it on another sheet of paper as well. Let me see, I should have it pulled up somewhere here. Yeah, here. If you look on It's Learning, I'll show you where all of these resources are as well for how to address a letter. Anyway, so here's the example. Dear Dr. Yovich and the selection committee, make sure you do that, put a comma after it. I am Evelyn Fitzgerald, and I am a 26-year-old Pulitzer Prize winning poet and author. I am writing to you today to explain why I deserve to survive the zombie apocalypse. When I was a young girl, I would write about what I experienced, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mark this off as parallelism. I was honest about what I wrote, and I could communicate clearly. I mark this off as an example of alliteration. Granted, if you use alliteration, try to use it in a way that's very inspiring, it's persuasive. As a doctor, I provide hope, health, and happiness for each individual, something like that. This is exactly the kind of person we need in our new society. Some people might question the value of having an author in the new society, but I know it is worth it. People say that history repeats itself, which is not always what we want. In order to prevent this from happening, we need people like me to write down the history of our world. This allows us to learn from our mistakes and those of the rest of humanity. So right here, we have a counter argument. People are going to say, an author, what use is that in the new society? Why should we save you? Why should we give you this vaccine and let you live in the safe compound? Then we're refuting the argument by saying, however, we need someone that records the history of our world, what's happening here, because the only way that we can learn from our mistakes and what's happened is if someone's written it down. Otherwise, we have no idea what happened in our past. We can't learn from our mistakes. Just like, we just talked about journeys, learning from your mistakes, just like that. Okay, think about the Holocaust for a moment. Do you think we will ever allow that amount of genocide to occur again? So we have a rhetorical question here, right? Not only is this rhetorical question a device, it's also appealing to emotion. We're mentioning genocide, millions of people dying. However, we also answer it. No, of course not. We as a human race should be determined to never permit another Adolf Hitler to take over and murder millions of people. You need somebody to record the zombie apocalypse as it happens. Let me talk to the people, be involved in the community that will survive, and interview the scientists. I can write all of it down for future generations to learn from. Do you want to be remembered for centuries to come? So now also appealing then to the emotions of the doctor as well as selection committee. Do you want to be remembered for your accomplishments? I can help you because I'm a writer. I won the Pulitzer Prize for my achievement in literature. There are only 14 people who receive this award every year. This proves that I'm a credible writer with an audience who will listen to me. So here I've marked it off as ethos, credibility. Like I said, you only have to use one appeal. I'm just giving you examples of multiple. My influence can help in our new society. Here is a short sample of what I can offer to the new society. In the year 2018, a talented group of scientists were faced with a rough choice. Who would they select for a limited number of vaccines against the zombie virus? The decision was tough and required much thought and consideration. The brave committee faced the challenge with dignity and poise. These are the people they chose. So I'm just giving an example of my writing for how I can help you. So maybe give examples of how you might help in the zombie apocalypse. How are you going to use your skills as a farmer or as a doctor? Or even, let's say you get a minister. You provide mental counsel to people, right? Emotional counsel. A lot of time people go to ministers the same way they would go to a psychologist. Okay, so for thousands of years, words and works of art have been preserved because people realize their worth. For example, Shakespeare, known as one of the most talented writers in the world, is often quoted and read in our schools today. I'm sure he would agree with me. The Mona Lisa has been displayed around the world. People know the value of art, and I'm one of the people who can create it. So I've also kind of given some facts, right? A fact of a situation would be that you're a doctor, and here's the facts of what I have medically incapable of doing. I can perform surgical practices, etc. You can even throw in some made-up statistics, right? How many people have you worked on in your life? I've successfully performed over 300 surgeries. That's logos, that's facts. Appealing to the logic that you need a doctor, the logic that you're going to need someone to address mental health or need someone to grow food. Just some examples of what you can do. So choosing me for the new society is a wise thing to do. Thank you for taking the time to read my letter. Okay, so that's the example. And now let's see, what do I want to show you next? All right, so I want you to know where you can find all of this information. If you go to It's Learning and you click on Resources, underneath the Unit 3 Survival and Rhetoric folder, I have the summative letter assignment. Here is where I have the assignment sheet. I also have the PowerPoint that I was just showing you. The letter example that I just read to you guys. Here are the character descriptions. This is where you need to go to figure out what character you are. You need to write your letter from the perspective of one of these people, whoever you're assigned. I'm about to pull that up on the screen. You can pause the video, obviously, and write down your number, and then go here and figure out who is it. You can add in details if you want to. On that character descriptions sheet, it actually asks you to do that. Let's see, scroll up, where it says, you know, what else should the reader know about your character? Be creative, add in some of your stuff, but keep it reasonable. This means that if you're a custodian, you can't say, well, in my spare time, I'm also an astronaut. That doesn't work. Keep it within reason. Obviously, add in your own details, and maybe I went camping every weekend, so I do have some more additional survival skills, but it has to make sense. If it's supporting your argument, that's totally cool. Anyways, back to It's Learning. I also have what I need to show you here, copy of envelope check letter formats. So something else I want you to do is you're going to staple this extra sheet of paper to your letter when you're done. And it shows you how to format an envelope. So it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm not going to go into huge detail about this, but basically in the corner, in the upper hand corner, this is where you put your character's name, whatever you decide the name is, as well as your address. It can be made up. You can just use the one down here if you would like as well. And then below, centered, you generally put the address of the person you're sending the letter to. In this case, it'll be Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Here is already provided with the address. Check instructions. You're always going to have to write a check, whether it's you're making a money order or you're writing a deposit or withdrawal slip. You do it in the same way. No matter what, you're going to have to know how to do this in life. So what do? Up here where the little money symbol is, you're going to have to put the actual dollar amount. In this case, I'm saying that it's going to cost you $24.50 in order to be considered for this compound, to get the vaccine to be kept in this compound. So you'll write that number amount here. Here you have to write it out in words. So instead of just putting the number 24, we write $24. And then whatever our changes, we put and then 0 over 100. So in this case, it's 50 cents. So it would be 50 over 100. Let's say your amount was 13.30. You would write $13 and then you would put 30 slash 100. It's just the way you write it. Pay to the order of. Here, you're going to put Dr. Yoyevich. You can put obviously the committee as well, but mostly the doctor. You can put Center of Disease Control there if you like as well. Your signature, and right here it'll say for a lot of the time. You don't necessarily always have to put something there. Usually that's when you actually put the information like, oh, this is for a birthday present, whatever it is. You don't have to fill that out. Don't worry about it. But this is online as an example. What you also need to look at is I will view the letter example to see how to set it up. This is what would be your signature, and then you type your name. If you're handwriting this, still do this format, do your signature in between your handwritten one and then your cursive signature. I realize that I might not have Chromebooks available for everybody to use, so some of you might have to write this. Friday, I'm hoping to get enough where you can then type up your final draft, but that might not be the case. Okay, most importantly, in addition to the things that I asked you to add, like write this down, it's already on your assignment sheet. I just want you to write it down because I know sometimes people don't read it. In addition to these things, you will need to label, and I need you to write this down, label each of your appeals and devices. So just like I did in my example, highlight a sentence, and those 2 sentences I show my ethos. And these 2 sentences, this is where I used alliteration. This is where I used repetition. You can color code it however you want to do it, but as long as you're labeled. That's actually part of your grade. So I need you to actually do that. Okay, it also helps me to identify it because maybe it's not immediately clear to me that you use that rhetorical device. And if you didn't label it, maybe I mark off on the rubric that you didn't use as many. You didn't use 3. So make sure you look over that rubric as well. Okay, so here is your assigned number. This assigned number matches up with a character description. So take a minute, pause the video if you need to, look at what number you have, and then go to that character slip and figure out who you were assigned. And you can pretty much start working on this. I think I've told you all you need to know. And know that everything's on its learning right there. I'll be back on Friday for you to ask me questions. If you have trouble with any of this, let me know. Some of you have my phone numbers in this period. So that's good. You can always text me. I am in the school currently while you're working on this. What I've put here is actually just a link. It links to that character slip. So if you want to just type that into your phone instead of going to It's Learning, you can just click on that simply as well, or type it in. Either way. Please consider your soapstone when you're writing this, as well as I'm just going to briefly put on the screen here just some of the rhetorical devices and techniques that you can incorporate. You should already have it in your notes, but I'll just put it up here so you can pause it or have it open if you want. So you're the speaker, obviously. The speaker is whichever persona you're writing from. Occasion, so the occasion is the zombie apocalypse. Medium, letter. Your audience is the doctor and the selection committee. Your purpose is obviously to be considered to get that vaccination and to be able to live in this safe compound that has, resources, things to help you survive. The subject, this is the topic of your essay, kind of goes along, you're persuading them to give into. Your subject is whatever you end up talking about within there to persuade them. Your tone, so keep in mind what kind of language you are using. I definitely recommend too, if you don't know a lot about your person, let's say their job, or you're like, how am I going to say that a custodian is useful? Look up their job description. Look up what skills you actually learn or need to have that kind of job. A lot of the time you can then use those skills to convince people, right? So I have to be responsible. I have to, use problem solving skills every single day. That can be useful in case of a crisis. I can keep myself level-headed and collected, even though I'm facing danger or am in a situation where my life is threatened. I can still make those decisions. So keep that in mind as well. I wanted to mention, because custodian, I keep mentioning that because it is one of them. And I know people struggle with that one. They're like, what? Keep in mind that there's literally a virus around. So of course you're going to be useful. You can help people by, first of all, knowing about chemical cleanup. There are all different kinds of custodians, okay? You have to know what is safe disposal of different things, especially if you're going to be staying somewhere like the CDC that has needles and chemicals everywhere. How else might you help them to make sure that disease does not spread or does not get inside? They need someone that is going to be there to help them with that. So consider that when you're developing your argument. All right, and finally, this is the list of persuasive techniques that I've just put on this presentation for you to look at. I'm pretty sure I've covered all of them. I might have missed a few. So look at your notes for sure. You have all of those notes that we took on this. I would definitely reference them for this activity. I've highlighted some of them in green just because I felt like they were really effective and might be easier for you to use. Obviously, you can choose any of these. I just did that to try to help you. So that's it. I will be back on Friday, and I will see you guys then. Bye.